Hello everyone, you're welcome to another edition of Christocentric Filmhouse on the issues of drug abuse. Today, we will be speaking on drug abuse and its impact on the economy. As always, I am your host, Onotu David. Alright, before we begin, let us understand what is drug abuse. Drug abuse occurs when people take drugs for purposes other than that for which it was intended, usually for their psychoactive effects. Alcohol can be abused when taken in excess, usually to numb pain. People who go through emotional trauma or who are dealing with issues in their life tend to engage excessively in the drinking of alcohol or in other substances like marijuana, heroin, inhalants. Everyday substances that we find within our homes and environment can be abused depending on how they are used. For instance, cigarettes, alcohol, coffee. There are other stronger drugs or substances that are not so easily gotten. Those will be marijuana, cocaine, heroin, because of legal implications and government's ban on some of these products. Paracetamol, that is even easily accessible, can be abused depending on how it is ingested into the body. Economy can be defined as the management of financial matters for a community, business, or family. The stock market is an example of economy, but let us downscale it a little so we all be on the same page. Everyday financial activities that we engage in, no matter how much is in your pocket, how did you get that money? Did you work for it? Did you rob someone to get it? Did you find it lying on the ground? Now, money is important for service exchange, for the exchange of values and commodities. So whatever transaction, whatever activity you engage in that earns you money is economy. If you're a carpenter, you do your carpentry job and you get paid for that service, that is economy. If you're a market woman and you sell fruits, vegetables, or whatever foodstuff you sell, and you get paid for providing that foodstuff, that is economy. But in turn, you have to purchase those foodstuffs from somewhere. So where you purchase them from, you paid for it and you were given those goods and services. That is economy. Simply put, the barber in his shop who offers service by, fashionably designing people's hair and gets paid for it is involved in the economy. Okay, even the transport workers, they're involved in the economy. Students who go to school and pay their fees are involved in the economy. Whatever activity that involves the transaction of money is economy. All right, now we have come to this point. We've talked about what the economy is, and we've also talked about drug abuse. I know in your mind you'll be asking, what is the connection? What is the relationship between drug abuse and the economy? The connections are quite simple. They're there for anybody to see. And this is understanding that drug abuse affects the health of any individual who gets involved in it. Is important towards understanding economy. How? Now, we as a nation need people to contribute to the workforce of our country. The higher the population of a community, a place, a state, or a country, the higher the potential for that place or community to be able to develop its financial matters, to be able to contribute meaningfully, productively, economically to the general growth of that place. If the general health condition of a people living in a community or a family has been adversely affected by drug abuse, can those people meaningfully engage in any financial transaction or dealings? As a man who wants to build a house, will you employ the services of someone who is an addict, of someone who is under the influence of drug abuse? What kind of a house will that person build for you? It's questionable. As a man involved in transport business, will you employ the services of a driver who is always drunk, who's always high on some psychoactive substance, what will be the fate of the passengers in that car? Their lives will be at risk. Of course, no right-thinking person will employ the service of someone who is an addict or who has health challenges that have been caused by drug abuse. No, you wouldn't do it. I won't do it. So what becomes of those people? What becomes of the services I require? What becomes of the lives of those people? Simply put, low productivity. And if this happens on a larger scale, it begins to affect the national, economic output, and that is no good. Independent statistics carried out in Nigeria between 2018 and 19 reveals that over 15% of our population are drug users. That should bother you, that should bother me, that should bother the government. Now, out of that 15% of the population, the age bracket that were the majority in the use of these drugs are between 15 to 39. What does that say? That says a lot. This is the workforce of the country. This is the age where people have their strengths physically and mentally. These people, by virtue of their age bracket, can turn around the financial fortunes of any country for the better. But on the other hand, if their health is affected, if they can't, function properly because they are addicted to drugs, what does that mean? Simply, the economic future of that country is headed for jeopardy. So we must take this very seriously. Imagine a family of, say, 4 persons, a father, a mother, maybe 2 male children or 2 female children. If the father is aged 70 and the mother is about 60, of course their strength to be financially productive may be dimmed. So they will depend on their children to help out financially in the family. Now these children, let's imagine their ages within that age bracket of 15 and 39. If both children are addicted to drugs, who will help out in the family? Who will work? Who will go out and source for financial income? Nobody. The family is headed for ruins, for poverty. Now that is a perfect example of what happens to a country when the active population are addicted to drugs. So I had to bring this down so we understand the magnitude of the dilemma we're in and what we're facing as a country. So it is no surprise when we find that our international debt profile keeps climbing. Something is wrong and we're not looking where we should be looking. Our workforce are not actively engaged. Aside educational issues, aside issues of governance, a major issue we should be dealing with is a health issue. And we're not looking in that direction. And we're not talking about remanding offenders in jail. We're not entirely talking about repatriating addicts. But we're talking about prevention methods also. We're talking about the impact, the economic loss that we face as a country, as a people, when our active population are hooked on psychoactive substances. Arguably, some might say that the pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money, but that is a one-sided profit. That is a profit that does not translate into community well-being. It does not translate into national growth and development. Why is that? Because we are ruining the active demography in our country when they are hooked on drugs. Who is to do the work? We're looking at governance here, not just profit making for a select few. As we have come to know, drug abuse is a public health issue globally. The United Nations report on drug abuse and crime, that is the UNODC, has in its latest report said that over 5.5% of the population are hooked on drugs. That is a whopping 271 million people. People aged between 16 and 64 years old have used drugs between 2018 and 2019. What is to say that number has not doubled over the years? The enormity of the impact of the drug abuse problem has not been fully grasped by the Nigerian government. You see, most times when we talk about drug abuse and economy here in Nigeria, or with regards to costs, we are more focused on how much is spent on keeping offenders in jail, how much is spent on treatment and rehabilitation. Important has expenses on keeping offenders in prison and rehabilitating drug users is, it is also extremely fundamental that we concentrate a little bit more on expense, the overall loss, the economic loss that is associated with the majority or the population of people involved in using prescription drugs. There is a lot we stand to benefit as a people when we channel our resources properly with regards to drug abuse and getting people who are hooked on drugs, off their addiction. Imagine the possibilities, the economic possibilities, when the workforce is improved, there are more people who can contribute economically. We're looking at governance here, we're looking at community development, we're looking at the holistic economic growth of our people, not just profit making by a select few individuals. That is not healthy for the GDP of any country. And that is why we say there is a huge impact of drug abuse on the economy of a state or people. And we need to have this conversation. We need to talk about it. What are our young people doing? Why are they being addicted to drugs? How will they contribute meaningfully to the economic development of a country if their health is impaired, if their cognitive abilities are impaired? There is no end to talking about this. Yes, they earn money, but someone who is challenged health-wise because of his addiction to drugs cannot be gainfully employed, or will have challenges and difficulty trying to earn a living, because nobody will want the service of a driver who is hooked on drugs, of an engineer who cannot control his drug usage, of a barber, even of a cleaner. Why? Because anything can happen. They can lose control of their physical powers. Now, when someone loses his job because of his addiction problems or her addiction problems, how do they earn money? They are forced into some maybe illegal means of earning cash. You would say that contributes also to the economy. But what is the damage in the long run? Petty thievery, banditry, kidnapping, forceful coercion of people in order to take advantage of them financially. And that is why our society today, one of the reasons why the Nigerian society is in the dilemma it has found itself. We have crime at an all-time high. And this crime is being perpetuated by young people between the ages of 16 to 39. Why are they into crime? Because we've rendered them unable to earn a decent living through one factor, which is drug abuse, through one factor, which is the inordinate use of psychoactive substances. Why? Because of the greed of a few pharmaceutical companies. There is no end to this conversation. We must continue to talk about it. In the course of this conversation, there are a lot of areas we may not have touched. There are a lot of issues I may not have raised. However, we would like to get your input. We would like to get your own version of the story. What are your ideas? What questions do you have? What necessary contributions do you think will further this conversation and improve the economical health of our young people and our country as a whole? Once again, I am your host on Christocentric Fieldhouse, Onotu David.